Brad Anderson from Commend, and I again thank you for the opportunity to share some insights that I had as a result of the casualty, the actual tragic, chaotic event that took place in San Bernardino almost 2 years ago in December. The opportunity that Ray gave me was, one, can we sponsor these tracks? I said, sure. So that was a pleasure to do that. And they said, well, I need you to do a case study. And I said, well, I've got one for you. So what I'm going to do with this, what we're going to do today is, it's going to be a little bit different than just a panel environment and a presentation. We kind of a combination. A lot of the things I'm going to share with you are personal insights. A lot of things I'm going to share with you are approaches and initiatives that our company has started to do to make ourselves different than a lot of other communication companies. So I already defer to the consultants on the panel for some of the actual very specific and technical things. What I will do is I'm going to lay out some rhetorical questions to ourselves that we ask ourselves, and that is, are we designing or selling things in the security industry that's making a difference, especially in the chaotic world that we're in today? As I said this morning at breakfast, I came out of the video space where some of you may have seen me at a booth touching a touch screen on the wall, and you should be very excited about what I was doing in video. And had an opportunity to shift to audio, which is great. But more important than the shift in terms of the product is my mind changed, and it changed a couple of years ago when I actually ran by San Bernardino, and I'll tell you about that in just a minute. Okay, what's changed inside of me? And if I get hair bumps on my arms, you'll know I'm not kidding. It's very emotional to be in this industry right now and to take very seriously what we're doing, and I hope you guys will feel the same way. So we're going to go through a little bit about Commend, real brief about that. You all had received from me an email about some prep material. So you got the interagency security committees. If you didn't get it, I'll make sure you get it. But the interagency security committees, active shooter guidelines and mandates. You also got the after action incident report from San Bernardino. It was done by cops. And I'm going to share that with you today. And then I'm going to talk a little about FEMA's ICS 100, Emergency Operation Plan. And you say, well, why are we talking about that? We talk about that because one of my friends and mentors, a gentleman by the name of Jerry Wilkins, has actually been training our Commend organization to be different about how we approach what we do. And we do it from an emergency operations perspective, and I think it'll come to light what that means as we actually go through the San Bernardino report. Then I'm going to talk about something called ICS 200. You know, if you guys are probably familiar with ICS 200, Ryan. And what's interesting about ICS 200 resource typing is, I just looked in the RTLT, which is the resource typing library for FEMA, that you type resource you would need for a disaster. They don't have in the library of the database video, access control, or audio. It's very interesting. When you get to it, you'll understand why it may be important in light of what transpired at San Bernardino and other events like that. And then I'm going to go into the actual background of Calm the Chaos. San Bernardino, I'm going to play some audio from the radio for you, that you can kind of get the perspective of what was happening during that event. What's interesting, once you hear the audio and you read the after-action incident report, it kind of does this. It doesn't exactly line up. Okay, so it's interesting how they wrote one document, but when you hear the audio, you go, wait a minute, that's a little bit different. And then we'll finish up with some questions, and this is where the panel comes in. The questions I'm asking myself. I'm asking you, I'm asking the panel to respond to an excerpt from the after-action incident report. When you're hearing the words of the actual contact team that went in, what they said, what they saw, what was available to them, what was not available to them. It's very powerful. And then Dave has got some stuff that really comes down to the code side of all this and actually preparing facilities for incidents. And NFPA 72 is going to be definitely your bailiwick. So Dave, can you just give everybody just quick on who you are, please?
My name is Dave Miller with MCG Design Services. I've been in the business since 1989. I got here because my wife told me to get a job. I took some hard knocks for a few years, learning my trade, moved back to Portland because I went to high school, junior high and high school in Oregon, and went to work for a distributor there. Time of the high-tech boom, and then I'm kind of a person that gets bored doing the same thing over and over again. So I went into consulting, and I can say the one thing, I've never been bored as a consultant. So that's a good sign. I specialize in fire alarm. I'm an ISET level 4, and I also hold IC certification as a certified plans examiner and inspector. I'm also currently the chair of that exam committee, and I've also been doing security for 20 plus years, either selling it or consulting on it. So that's my background.
Hi, I'm Ryan Schonfeld, RIS Consulting and Investigations. We're based out of LA, and our focus in consulting is security operations. We do A&E work, but we really focus on the end user, and with that we do a lot of training, including active shooter, workplace violence, former law enforcement officer, and instructor for State Department diplomatic security.
Great, thank you very much. We're all three connected because Ryan was a law enforcement in the great state of Maryland. Dave was at the Naval Academy for a while in Annapolis, and I lived on Maryland's Eastern Shore, so we've got a little bit of the Eastern Shore going on, or Maryland going on here. So listen, you never have a crab cake anywhere else in America, but if it says Maryland crab, you've got to test them on this, and I do that, so we'll do it tonight. So my name is Brad Anderson. I've been in the security industry for about 17 years. I got started coming from IT, where we accidentally fell upon doing video on a network back in 2000. Our organization was putting on an event with some company that made routers and switches named Cisco, and we were you know those guys, right? And they were very excited about the convergence of data, voice, and video on a network, and we stood up an IP surveillance practice with a bunch of guys, and just IT guys who came either from IBM Big Iron or networking, and lo and behold, we were selling mesh networks to Phoenix with IP cameras, trying to catch the baseline, the recreational sniper back in 2003 or 4, whatever it was. So was doing some interesting things in the video space in IT, you know, back a while ago, and now I'm working with Command. I'm very passionate about what I do. Real quick on Command, just a little commercial. We are striving to be, you know, some of you guys came to us this week and didn't really know who we were. I just want to tell you what about us that I think is important to know. We want to be America's leader in security communications, impacting outcomes with our solutions, while at the same time education. You'll see that as we go, how important it is for people to understand today that you can't have 10 different master stations and 10 different disparate systems when boom happens, okay? We create lasting empowering solutions for customers focused on improving operations and increasing survivability. I'm Alice trained, and if you guys are pro-Alice or not pro-Alice, I don't know, but I've at least gone through that 2-day training with Alice Training Institute, alert, lockdown, inform, counter, evacuate. I haven't shot with the airsoft gun, so I do know what it's like when there's in a real tense situation like that, and what people have had to go through. And one of the words they use is survivability. So as an organization, as a team, we want to solve the problems for our customers, unique things that we do, open constructive tension. We're not afraid of that, because part of what you're going to see, I sat down in front of the people of San Bernardino about 3 weeks ago and did part of this presentation. And I look at an ex-wife, which doesn't make me nervous. She doesn't make me nervous, the San Bernardino people don't make me nervous, then you guys don't make me nervous. But I sat through that. And it was interesting to have a conversation, reviewing some of this with them. And lastly, we want to do something simple and do things that we believe have real value. The commercial's over. Let's talk about what we're going to do today. As an organization, we think in terms of locations and facilities where people assemble. Where are people assembled most of the time? You guys have customers that have hospitals or universities or K-12s, and there are people that are assembled there. Where people assemble becomes, the nature itself, there's a lot of people in one spot, a great soft target. Right? Got a lot of people in one spot. It's like shooting fish in a barrel, because most of them are not armed, most of them are not prepared. So we think in terms of how can communications in that environment be helpful. When I first got started at Command about almost 3 years ago, I went to a VA hospital in DC. Probably you guys have probably been there. And instead of looking for video cameras, I began a process of looking for intercoms, right? I got out of my car three floors down, and there was an intercom station on the wall. Got in the elevator, there was another intercom station in the elevator. Came outside, there was a blue pole, I don't know whose it was a blue pole. Walked up to the door they told me to go to, there was an ATM on the wall there. Got inside, the lady at reception was talking on the phone, right? Then I heard an overhead page, there was her paging. Got in the elevator, there's another module of those elevators that are taking me down to the dental department that's using Commend. We got done with that meeting where they loved Commend, and they said, can you go talk to surgery that's using an old crapped out TOA? has been there 20 years. And then the guy that escorted us was carrying a radio. So in a very short hour, 10 disparate communication systems in that one VA hospital. So, boom happens. How do we communicate to everybody within the environment with the proper, clear, concise instructions of what they should do? Should they run? Should they hide? Should they fight? Should they shelter? What instructions do we want to give them when there's a dynamic occurrence? Or what instructions do we want to give them automatically? Whether there's a sensor that goes off, because the sensor went off, we have enough foreseeability to say, hey, it's burning on the outside of that door, so let's run to this door. Let's not go that way, let's go this way. So we think in this kind of terms, and our organization has it all going through ICS 100. Well, why would we do that? Well, because most of our customers have people assembled there, the hospitals, the campuses and so forth, all do what's called all-hazard approach to planning what goes on in their environment. Let's give you a great example. My favorite child is my 20-year-old daughter. She's my favorite because she's only 1 out of 6 that's a girl, so I like her better than the rest of them, right? And she can just say daddy and it's over. She goes to Salisbury University, Salisbury, Maryland. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Salisbury, Maryland, but the campus is on 2 sides of Route 13. And one of the things that Captain Mike is prepared for is when that train comes down to town 13, parallel to the 13, the train comes down, I've asked him, I said, Mike, do you know the schedule of that train? He says, of course I do. I said, do you know what's on those train cars? He says, of course I do. I said, do you plan for that all-hazard thing? We absolutely do. We work in conjunction with the county operations, the city operations, and we know what we need to do in case a train was derailed. So the whole idea of emergency operation planning is a hazard, let's plan for it, let's test a plan, let's continually maintain, revise that plan, and test and drill and test and drill. But the all-hazardous type of things that I would need to prepare for could be a hazardous chemical spill, it could be a traffic incident, a man-made disaster, natural, technological, or public health, maybe even a search and rescue operations. Those places where people assemble, they're already going through this exercise of preparing for something happening. Boom. They're not, it's like, man, I wonder if anything's going to happen. No, they're doing it all the time. And our approach at Commend is, well, wait a minute. Why don't we start thinking the same way that these people think where people assemble? This is before we even get to a terrorist attack, a hostage crisis, or an active shooter. So when I sent this, when we sent this out, what I had in mind was, what can I share that might be valuable to this group? And one of the things I discovered is valuable is that in this preparation process, we just talked about that train derailment possibility next to Salisbury University. It's not a black swan to wonder if a train's ever going to derail in America, right? They derail all the time, right? You guys know the book called The Black Swan? You guys, if you're not, I'll bring that up in a minute. It's the unexpected, right? Planning for the unexpected. Well, they go through a process called ICS 200. So what's that? What is that, Mr. Mike? He says, well, resource typing defines and establishes a common language for discussing resources by defining the minimum capabilities for personnel, equipment, teams, facilities. Resource typing enables communities to plan for and request and have confidence in the capability of the resources received from other jurisdictions, other organizations. When identifying which resources to type at the national level, FEMA selects resources that. Now let's talk about what do you mean by resources? Well, if the train turns over next to Salisbury University, what do you think they need? What would they need? What kind of stuff would you need if a train turned over? Hazmat. What else?
Insurance.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, right. Somebody should, right? Need insurance, need hazmat. What?
A crane.
A crane? You need a crane? What else?
Wind, weather conditions, wind speed, direction.
You need weather information from,
information.
You need local support and control of traffic.
Traffic control, so I need, right? How about dirt?
Containment.
How about a crane?
Crane, we had crane back here. How about water?
Front end loader, water.
But you know what these guys do? They do a tabletop and they plan for what if that happens. And they document it and they put it in a book. It's called ICS 200, right? They plan for what if happens, right? And they are so anal, they're not anal, They're even down to how many gallons per minute the pumps will pump. Even to the pumps being potable water, non-potable water, and you better have in your incident action plan in that Bible. Give me the stuff. If it's not in here, then I'm not prepared. I can't expect to use it. So it goes on to say, they're already defined and regularly organized and shareable, can be shared and or deployed across jurisdictional boundaries through mutual aid agreements or compacts during an incident, have performance capability levels, which talk about the pump being able to pump X amount of water, right? We need to have a certain amount of capability that can be identifiable as capability, category, kind, and type, and that's what's called ICS 200. This is how they got 60 meals a day down in Naples, Florida, and over 100 bottles of water out to people during the hurricane in Florida. Chris, I know you just had a serious incident here as well. Because somebody had already planned out, if something occurs, let's be prepared, where's my stuff? What stuff do I need? Where am I keeping it? Who am I going to call? It's very logical to do it all over the country, United States. Is it not reasonable that we could also take that same approach and bring calm to chaos, because let's resource type things beyond the crane, beyond the police, beyond the dirt, beyond the pumps, beyond the hazmat, and let's start looking at electronic countermeasures. What do you mean? Well, what about resource typing access control, resource typing video, resource typing audio? So that we can possibly increase or improve situational awareness during an all-hazard event. Before we go to San Bernardino, so here's Salisbury University. We've got a new science building. We've got Purdue School of Business. Okay, we've got Route 13. We've got gates. We've got blue poles. We've got PTZ cameras on the corners of all the buildings. We've got the parking garage over here. It's got PTZs on that as well. And I said to Captain Mike, I said, well, you've got an emergency operation plan? I said, sure do. I said, do you put into the plan the use of your electronic countermeasures? Never thought about it. I said, why not tell the guy in operations that I've got these PTZ cameras available to me? Why? I've got eyes on scene. No, well, they're going to do that anyway. Let me tell you something. If you don't plan for it, don't expect during that all-hazard event that all of a sudden get all this clear thinking that's going to come. We don't rise to an occasion. We fall to the level of our training, right? So, access control, look, I know there's laws and rules, can and versus may, but understand, if I wanted to lock the door so I don't want the kids to go into the chlorine cloud, let me lock the doors on that side. Maybe that's not a good thing based on code, but principally think about that. And oh, by the way, I've got all these blue poles, overhead paging, intercoms, why not deliver instructions out into the community, into the buildings as to which way to go? Do not go towards 13, the chicken plant truck has turned over, or the train car has turned over with the chemicals. Now we'll go to San Bernardino. We think about resource type and all these things within an emergency operation plan. I shared this with San Bernardino, and I got a bunch of this. So you guys have received this, bring calm to chaos, and you may have received this. Our team is instructed when we sit down with customers today to be ready and prepared to handle this document. If you don't, well, you have that document. I would encourage you to read it. It talks about preparation. You guys are all familiar with the reasonable man test. I think I heard some people talk about that today, the reasonable man test or foreseeability. Is it not reasonable if this document by the Interagency Security Committee was prepared for the executive branch of our government, why can't we take that same blueprint and lay it over on a hospital or lay it over on a university in terms of preparedness and preparation? We can. It's the same exact process, same exact practice that could be used. So our team reads that kind of stuff. And then we go back to the Inland Regional Center. So on the 18th of February 2016, I was coming up from San Diego to go make a regular call on Kurt Hagen, the county supervisor over in San Bernardino, because one of our rep friends, consultant friends, had set up a meeting, and I thought I was going to go and sell something to San Bernardino 76 days after they had a shooting. And I got up like I do every morning, except for Mondays, it's my day off. I pull out this app and I plan out my run for the day. So I got an 8-mile day that day. And I'm going to leave the hotel, I'm going to go down International, and I'm going to turn right, I'm going to go down the street called Waterman. Okay, go for a run. I see the San Bernardino River or San something river, and I want to make sure there was a bridge there so I can get over it, and I go off on my run. I get to that bridge, I'm about a mile and a half into my run, I look out in front of me, and all of a sudden I said, that looks kind of weird, something's in the road. A lot of yellow tape, a bunch of temporary fences, a bunch of dead flowers, a bunch of melted candles. And just like what's happening on my body right now, all of a sudden I started getting chill bumps. Where was I? I was there, Inland Regional Center. And I haven't been the same since. I just haven't been the same since. And I know you guys are probably, you've been in law enforcement, some of you guys are ex-military. Chris's son's actually in the military, and I know that you've got all experienced those kind of tragedies, and I've seen stuff. But for some reason, that particular incident changed my whole perspective, my whole persona, my whole passion, my whole understanding about how important it is, our job is, and everybody's job is in the security industry, to try to figure out ways to fix this stuff. Quiz question, not in the presentation. Last time a child or a teacher was killed in a K-12 fire in the United States. When was the last time a child was killed in a K-12 fire in the United States of America? Or a teacher? Anybody have an idea?
60s, 70s.
Do you know?
70s?
Ben, you know?
50s.
1958? Our Lady of Angels. Our Lady of Angels in Chicago, right? Go read that whole story. 92 kids and 3 nuns. It was a bad day. But guess what? The standards that you're going to talk about were reinforced from that point forward. The drills, the testing, the supervision. I don't have to worry about this sprinkler working in this building because somebody's coming down somebody and making sure the stuff works there, right? In the fire space. But yet, in the other side of the equation, these dynamic disastrous events, they just keep happening. So I'm like, what can we do? I don't have all the answers here. We've just got a rhetorical approach to, is there a way we could approach this differently? And I believe using ICS 100, using 200, and applying some of that thought process into this very specific incident. And let's see if maybe we can design things differently. Maybe we can talk to people differently about this. Maybe we can go, you know what? I never thought about that. The same way the chief at Sullivan University never even thought about, hey, I should just put those cameras in my plan. May not have to use them, but at least the guy knows they're in the book and they're available and they know how to log into them and how to use them. So let's look at let's listen to this real quick. Let me turn this microphone on for a second. It's going to be about 3 minutes, the first 3 minutes of the radio. Is that on? That's not on. All right. Can you control that from your end? I can control this. Pretty close. All right. Let's listen to 3 minutes real quick.
It's now shots fired. 1 Ida 10 with 1 Sam 8 to start down that way. Inland Center, correction, the Inland Regional Center, 1365 South Waterman. Call number 6127. And any X-ray unit, station 1?
Lincoln 6, we copied word of the circ.
Apparently the subject is still inside the business, 1365 South Waterman. It's in building number 3, possible active shooter. 1 suspect.
6 will be in rep.
Copy. 1 suspect so far, male in black clothing. He's still firing rounds.
40 King.
He's already on the way.
And any other units available, have them respond code 3, closest unit.
1 Ida 10, I'll show you around code 3. Sam 8, where do you want your staging point?
I'll advise when I go 97. Lincoln 3.
Lincoln 3. What's your 5 emerald? Lincoln 3.
Almost 97. Where in the building is he closest to you, south or north end?
So far I'm getting getting on the ground floor an unknown race male, all black clothing with a black mask. We do have victims down. We'll have fire staging, RPS security. Sounds like first door intake. Tower 40 King 1365 South Waterman.
Lincoln 3, I will be going 97 on the south side. I need 3 more units, 97 my location for an entry team.
Copy on the south side, 10-3 on Channel 1, no marker.
We're taking up people running on the north side into the building, north building.
Running into the north building?
From the parking lot into the north building. 2297.
Copy.
Travis, you're 20.
Units hold the air.
Lincoln 3, I've got one other unit 97 with me. Let's get 2 more with us.
Ida 10 ETA.
Mike, we're 40 on Waterman.
Units covered. Ida 10 ETA.
4 on Waterman.
4 on Waterman. Covered.
Lincoln 3, I need 2 more units 97 with me first, and then I need our next units 97 on the north end.
So we're 2 more units down to the south side. The shooter's supposed to be in a parking lot. No better description on that location with a machine gun for this RP.
That was the first 3 minutes. Actually, that was actually 4 minutes in. 4 minutes into what transpired. Lincoln 3 was the guy that was in charge of the TAC team. They had trained to do diamond formation, four-man group to go into that building. They weren't going to do a single.
Lincoln 3 is a lieutenant, not a patrol officer.
Right. And Lincoln 6 is he was kind of he was the ICS commander at the time. I'm done. I'll leave that again. Actually.
Oh, I just want to turn it off.
No problem.
Pick up
So
command.
Lincoln, it was interesting how the 4 that actually went into the building, where they were all this, I don't want to say random. One was patrol officer, one was probation. It was just an interesting group of guys that all trained well. Okay. What's also interesting about that particular facility, that particular room, was a year earlier they had all gone through Alice active shooter training. People will tell you in the report that had they not gone through that, they may not have been able to respond very well. You'll also read, when you see the actual timeline, first report, 5 rounds heard. That came from the 2nd floor of the building. 10:59, a minute later, a report of 3 suspects. They thought there was 3 suspects with assault rifles wearing black clothing. 2 patrol units were dispatched. Then Lieutenant Mike Madden came into the scene. And we're now 6 minutes into this. Okay, we're 6 minutes in. 1106, Lieutenant, Detective, Motor, and Patrol Officer from the contact team make entry. What's interesting is when they arrive here, Lieutenant Mike arrives there, the assailants had left the building. It was already over. Already over. A couple hundred rounds down range already. 1109, the SPPD, Special Weapons Tactics, SWAT team. How in the world did the SWAT team get there already geared up?
They happen to be out training.
5 minutes away? Yeah. Just happened to be there. And they got there, folks, within 9 minutes, 10 minutes.
And I can tell you a sub 45-minute response time for SWAT is unreal.
But just very
Sub
close.
45?
About 45 minutes for SWAT to be assembled on the scene.
And that's again why you have these 4-man tactics. They man up, they got 4 guys. I mean, an example is Las Vegas. Those 4 officers have never worked together.
Yeah.
They penetrated and made breach on the room, on the stairwell and on the room. That's just the way it's got to be. They can't wait for stuff.
Yeah.
Funny story. Well, so funny story in the wake of Columbine and the changing tactics for active shooter and the emergency response. In my department, when we changed from the wait for your backup to arrive to go in, if there's shots being heard, first person is going in, or assemble a small team, and the department decided we're going to call it the Fast Action Response Team. And some of us said, fart? Quickly changed the name of that group.
but they've trained to clear rooms in a diamond formation no matter who the four guys were. They knew how to actually go clear rooms.
Yeah. That's what they teach at the large center here in San Marcos.
Absolutely. First floor secured. They did not finish securing the first floor for almost 20 minutes. Okay? That means there was a lot of rooms on that first floor that they had to go room by room by room to make sure these three shooters weren't there. The other reason why you have four is that somebody's looking ahead, somebody's right and left, and somebody's protecting their six. That's why they also go to diamond formation as well, to make sure that everybody in that team is protected. Single response teams, there are some places that will do that, some places that don't. Depends on the MOU, the memorandum of understanding, right? Some places do, some places don't. In this case, they don't.
Well, and there's also, neighboring jurisdictions may use different radio codes or different radio frequencies. And, I was a police officer in the DC area, and after 9/11, there was a formation of the Council of Governments that got together and said everybody's going plain English on the radio, because that was one of the biggest issues on 9/11 is nobody could talk to each other because everybody's 10 codes were totally different.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. Yeah, so in this case, if you listen to the entire 40 minutes I've got of that, it's interesting how they're asking permission from without even come on the channel. Yes, sir, Mike.
I just wanted to say the doors that they couldn't open, they broke down,
Right.
busted wide open.
Yeah, we'll talk about that specifically, about how maybe we could use technologies. But there's an interesting thing about breaching, right? When you have a team that's trying to breach a room, and again, there's different ways you train for that. But somebody's got to come in their hall with some big device or private or whatever the case is to open that door. But then when that door swings open, you've got what's called a fatal funnel, right? So if you're the guy breaching, head down, that door swings open. Guess what? You're the first guy that they're looking at, right? So breaching is important. Let's go on here. So. The roof was cleared, probation set up a containment area for those that exited building 1. That's a very important part of that. It's interesting that they had this, the Alice training there, so they had some active shooter training, because the last thing in Alice is alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and they teach people how to evacuate. You don't run and go hug the police officer, which would seem like a natural, emotional thing to do. Yeah, they don't know if you're the bad guy or not. So that training, and they actually, it's interesting when you go read through this, how the probation group in that building knew how to properly evacuate and actually radio it in. It's very powerful. Anyway, secondary shoot of the building happens at 11:31. So what I did was take and put together out of this some questions. We're throwing to you guys and say, okay, so we had this chaotic thing. If you read through this, it was insane what was going on there in that brief period of time. Based on that 3-minute radio piece you heard there, it was already over. It's already done. Okay? So when you read this, an intensive chaotic search for shooters began initially with a vast IRC complex. Then the city and the surrounding areas. Now let's pause for 1 second. As I ran by this place, I'm getting chill bumps just thinking about it right now, and kept on going up to 5th Street or 5th Avenue, it's called. I see an elementary school that's about a mile away, okay? And I'm thinking to myself, I was like, I wonder what happened that day in that school. First of all, it was called Anderson Elementary, which I thought my name was Anderson, I just kind of related to. And all of a sudden I started looking around, what's happening in a radius around this environment right now? What's the lockdown procedure? What happened there? What those poor kids go through? What the parents go through? Because it all got out on the radio. They're all listening to scanners. So it was a chaotic situation, not just in that building, but in the area. And they wanted to prepare and use equipment and technology to keep officers and community members safe and informed was one of the important things they put in there. So my question is, based on these excerpts, statements, what design considerations can be made during an active killer event? Can we make considerations about this chaotic searching and then using equipment and technology to keep officers and community members safe and informed? We're designing fire, life safety for a building, maybe an inland environment or some other building like that. Knowing this now, it's chaotic, what are considerations we may want to make? Softball.
The first thing I think of is, video surveillance, audio surveillance technology. How quickly, if we had a SOC or a way for law enforcement to get into the system, trained and know how to use it. So that means a lot of different people have got to be trained, have access privileges. But how much more quickly could they have assisted the officers by being on the radio with them, saying, the hallway's clear, you can proceed. Any areas that are covered, you can proceed. You know, you can start to minimize that area. Again, that assumes we've got really good coverage. There's no place that they can hide the bad guys can hide behind the camera view or something like that. So again, it's never going to be perfect. You know, just to say one thing is, if you ever want to see a really good movie, it's called Siege of Jotaville. It's on Netflix. It's about the Irish army sent into the Congo in the 60s, and they were left out on their own. And the famous, I think it's from von Steuben, is everybody has a plan until they go into contact with the enemy. Okay? We're going to always have a plan, but the bigger deal here is it's going to change. It's going to have to change on the fly. And I would come back. I'm not a procedures guy. I'm not an operations guy. But to me, the thing I've seen in my career is you've got to teach people to have flexibility. That's the biggest thing. And there's a lot of people today that just can't be flexible. Right. So it's going to become a special breed. And I kind of was alluding to this yesterday when I made a comment in one of the sessions about, you know, the $10 to $12 hour security guard. That's not going to be the person performing this function. Okay. We're going to have to start to, as a society, we want to be secure. There's some freedoms we're going to have. We're going to have to tolerate surveillance where we maybe have not tolerated it before. And I think we're going to have to start to say, what are we willing to give up? You know, it's going to put a cost increase across our society that we're going to have to absorb somehow. And I don't know the answer to that. I really don't. So,
Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, flexibility and adaptability are really key, especially to training. So we did an active shooter live scenario with an end user about a year and a half ago involving LAPD, LA Fire. They brought in their cadets as actors. It was a very large-scale drill in a campus environment. And we had the GSOC on site there support the operation, and I mean, we had LAPD roll onto campus code 3 and set up their command center and have them run their liaison, you know, the go bag that we had prepared for PD, which I'll get to. And, you know, one of the things is tabletop exercises are great. We do them all the time with our clients, but real live practical exercises are better. Because at the end of the day, even a tabletop doesn't impart the stress of the situation. And when you get stressed out, you revert to your training. And if you haven't had that actual training, there's nothing to revert to. So we found what was interesting, and this will go into the design consideration, is, you know, we think of the active shooter and the person coming from the outside. You know, in this case, this is an interesting case because it's a workplace violence issue where it's also involving a radicalized person, and that those two haven't typically gone together.
Yep.
And we think about terrorists and Al-Qaeda and all that stuff, but in reality, that's not our biggest threat to date. So in a work environment, you know, we threw these guys for a loop, right? The first time we ran this scenario, we had the bad guy come crashing through the gate, shoot the guard, go into a building and start taking people out. We reset everything, and we didn't tell them what we were doing, but we actually started the scenario inside one of the office buildings as a workplace violence incident, and it was a termination going bad. And what they found was that they were completely unprepared to handle the incident when the threat actually started within the environment and wasn't coming from the outside in, or was rather protecting them from the inside out. And something that we consider in our design applications when we do those is not only how are we going to keep somebody physically out of the building, but if the threat's already in the building, how can we restrict the flow of movement once they're already inside the perimeter? Because that person's got an access card, they're an employee.
And if they're hitting the fire alarm system or they hit a sprinkler head, now you've got flow going on the sprinkler, alarm system's going off, and any doors that are designed to be unlocked during the fire condition are now locked, and they will not go back and lock until the system is reset.
In the IBC, the new IBC coming out, fire alarm is no longer, now you're in California, so that's like a different place. But things like magnetic locks and egress restricting devices such as delayed egress are no longer required to be connected to the fire line. And that's a good thing, but there's some conditions that have to follow.
Well, I was at Ed's seminar, just at Chandler's seminar, and it basically has to be is that yes, it can be a mag lock, but you have to be able to hit that panic bar to exit.
Oh, I'm not saying delayed egress is the only acceptable.
It's controlled egress is the one where we're controlling the egress.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't. Under all the accepted persons and courtrooms.
Well, I think it was like hopefully a door.
I'm a door hardware guy.
Okay. I'm just saying, if we could just ban mag locks, period, I'd be okay with that. Because there's always a way to work around it for the most part.
Well, here's my input to this question. I would think in terms of what you're saying is being able to think, first off, think dynamically. Tabletop is the beginning before you start doing drill and full-scale drill. So what they just did there
Built
was
to it.
Huh?
We built to it.
Yeah. But do you guys talk about, when you guys are working for a customer, do you talk about the operator sitting in front of, this one pane, and do you talk about stress inoculation drills? Good, because guess what? When boom happens, can they handle it when boom happens? We are of the belief that try to build in as much intelligence as possible so that in the case where an alarm goes off, we don't have to go, hey, there's a fire, should I press a button to tell the strobe to start flashing? No, it does it automatically, right? Well, why not use video and audio the same way? We know that something has happened here. We have a sensor that's accurate to 100%. Why not they do a proper message? Let's go to question 2.
Can I go back to the go bag real quick?
Yes, sir, please.
Because it really plays a vital role in the response of law enforcement and responders. And so, we put together a go bag for our sites that includes an access card that gets them into all the spaces, floor plans, and then any other thing that's specific to that site. And we make sure that we bring the police into the site. All the shifts that are responsible for that area, we work with the command staff, have them walk the location, so that when they're coming there for the stressful situation, it's not the first time that they've seen the site. We actually have our clients a lot of times, if they have like a cafe or bathrooms, we have them encourage the police to come there on duty and get some free coffee or use the restrooms. It's free added security for the customer, but it also familiarizes the officers with the environment. But what's interesting in a lot of these, the VMS products, and I'll use Genetec as one example, because you don't want to leave a bag sitting around with an all-access card, the God key or whatever, all the time. But if you can use something like a threat level in a Genetec or an equivalent in a different system, that when you trigger that type of event, that card now becomes active, then at least it's not that liability sitting around. But when you look at the response time in San Bernardino in terms of clearing the building, the main reason that it took so long was they had to breach so many access control doors.
I'm going to read your quote.
I wanted to ask a quick question too. Have you had any clients say they're willing to put a Panasonic tough book that's got access into the access control video system as part of the book?
We even done iPads or...
I'm going to read your quote. Tell me who said this. Let our advanced worrying become advanced thinking and planning. Let our advanced worrying become advanced thinking and planning.
Donald Trump.
No. Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill. So the whole idea about this incident and these after action and what can we learn is now, guess what, folks? It's funny, I live in Maryland, and voila, here a couple weeks later, another shooting in Maryland up in Hartford County, and this just doesn't seem to stop. But here was another piece right here. Suddenly the door swung open, a person clad in black with a mask shielding his or her face, stepped inside, wielding what appeared to be an automatic rifle. Without saying a word, the person now believed to be, not going to mention their name, a male assailant, opened fire. A second shooter followed the first. Together, the shooters fired more than 100 rounds. As the chaos unfolded, a round hit a fire sprinkler pipe, causing water to pour out of the ceiling. So taking that excerpt, when designing a security solution for public or private owned buildings / facilities, considerations are made for access control, video, intercom, PA, fire, phones. How could these electronic countermeasures have been leveraged during this chaos? What detection or sensor devices could have been used to pinpoint the shooters while assisting the victim? Consider this excerpt. What could have been used?
Gunshot detection?
Well, let's talk about the ones that are there right now. They didn't have a gunshot detection.
Well, clearly the fire alarm can be used if it's a voice of act as part of the public address system.
Absolutely.
And you can actually port that out, push the talk out to a radio on a police officer's belt if you want to.
So if that pipe breaks in this room, wherever we are, does somebody know exactly where it broke?
Right.
Relatively speaking?
No.
Relatively speaking?
No.
By floor, maybe, you know.
They know a zone, but they don't know
Under 4
exactly.
floors, it'll probably be a single flow for the entire building.
Right, okay.
That's what it's going to be. So,
Good.
I would actually advocate is, because you have your go bag, sometimes that may be compromised already to where you get to the go bag. So, in the fire side of the business, we use what's called a Knox box, a supervise. And I would actually advocate that we start putting law enforcement with capability for that. But we also put more than one. If we would start putting Knoxes at our primary points of entry. You can monitor them for tamper to make sure nobody's taking them off the building. And you give them that card, and I would actually say that should be an active card all the time.
Well,
You can't necessarily, if the SOC is compromised, if they have one, a lot of buildings don't, then there's no go back. There's nothing to get them into the building, and they're still breaching doors.
well, let me restructure the question a little bit, all right? Got a sensor that went off. We do know that the pipe's broken. We don't know where it is, but we do know there's a pipe broken in that building, right? The fire system will let us know I got water flowing. Will it tell us that?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
It tells us water flowing, right?
Yeah.
So, what detection or sensor devices could have been used to pinpoint this? What could be in a building that we designed that when we know there's water flowing, what should we be looking at?
Water sensor?
How about video? How about video?
Yeah, but I I think that would be out of the question, except maybe in corridors and stuff.
Why would it be out of the question?
Because you'd have to put it in every room.
I'm not saying, I already told the guy at Salisbury University, I'm not saying putting new cameras up, I'm just saying use the ones you got.
Well, then you're going to be restricted because the probability of that particular head going off in that particular place is.
Yeah, the water
No,
flows.
I'm just talking about the building.
Yeah.
All right, I know I've got water flow and a strobe and fire going off in this building. Let me see the cameras.
I think Brad's taking it higher level than that.
Just all the cameras.
Pretty much.
In that,
Yeah, sure.
in that you've got an alarm that's
No.
unverified. So you've got the cameras to look at, maybe you can verify it, maybe you can. But if you can, then you're improving your ability to react that much.
Yeah, what you're talking about is verification and not detection.
Yeah.
So that's a
The
difference.
detection was,
That's our difference.
the system's already told me I got water running, right? And I got smoke now because when you read this thing, it's insane. They said that the blood, the smoke, the water, when they actually,
The noise of the fire alarm.
it was just, an alarm going, it was just crazy. My point is that could we have used electronic countermeasures, even thought about it in advance? Now maybe we can. Look, if this happens, put in your plan to at least say, click, whether it's Genetech, milestone, whatever, let me look at video, okay?
Yeah, I think, we can do things now through IP or through relays even that had it been a smoke detector that had been hit or from the gunfire come up, you can now vector cameras to that position,
Sure.
or associate with alarms.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But you're really talking about an integrated approach that most owners aren't willing to fork out the money for.
I wonder if we could start equipping smoke detectors, then this is a manufacturing question, with a microphone. And
It's a UL fight.
I'm fully aware of the UL issues, but gunshot detection, I hear it reached all the time from, it's a standard analytic now on a lot of cameras. It's a standard in intercoms. It's a standard,
it's not.
So there's a solution that you might be able to consider. Again, sprinkler's different because it's a different code set that we'll probably get into. But on the alarm side, let's say you have to have smoke detection in your corridors. An option would be is there is now specific camera systems that will do smoke detection. And you could dual stream them to do a security application. The challenge, of course, is now because we've got these energy codes that were compromised. We can't compromise. God says, like up where I'm from, you can't kill a tree or any of that kind of stuff. But you have to have a certain amount of, I think it's probably 1 foot candle of light throughout the day and night for that camera to work in its function as a swimmer. And that may be some of your lighting codes and stuff that aren't.
Look,
It's going to matter. So we got to compromise.
the question here was, let's just consider, how could these electronic countermeasures have been leveraged during the chaos? I just want to just start thinking about this. What could have been leveraged during this? And I think you'll see some more as we move ahead. Yes, sir.
But the big thing is, and you said it earlier, is the unification of those systems. And that's where we're still disparate.
Or the mentality of that, right? Now, yes, sir.
So along the same lines, can we expect police officers to be able to operate all these different systems?
Well, with proper training, anybody can do just about anything, right?
Well, yeah, but who's going to train them?
Well, let's go back to Brian back here. Brian did a great presentation this morning, emotional presentation about Sandy Hook, right? How much training have you done for the people inside the facility as well as outside? It was
Newtown has the benefit of, I mean, all the schools in Newtown use one platform, right?
Yeah.
So the police can be trained on that one specific platform. So that makes it a lot easier. When you get into a metropolitan area, you might find 6, 7, 8, 10 different manufacturers of access control systems. That would be certainly problematic.
I agree, but again, from a principled perspective, okay, when you went here was they actually, from an ICS perspective, that's shareable across jurisdictional boundaries, performance capability levels, like OMVIF. I mean, all of a sudden you can start using some standards in designing. And again, maybe you don't have big metropolitan customers per se. All I'm doing is throwing out here some questions that I believe will be helpful for the next preventive. Look, if we could just reduce the body count of some of these things, and that sounds morbid to even say that. Yes, sir.
Well, I've put this kind of stuff from a consultant's perspective into 3 buckets. One is prevention.
Yep.
The other one is mitigation. Once it occurs, and there's a very short timeline between those two. And the third is recovery. So some of these things, most of the things we're talking about is mitigation, because by the time the first shot is fired, the incident is on is on you. So we can automatically close doors. There's a lot of things. We can automatically disable cars. We can automatically lock doors. We can do a lot of things now that we couldn't do some time ago.
Right.
Either by relay or by interface.
Sure.
So those 3 buckets are my big deal for each one.
But when you think about the juxtaposition of security and life safety, security, we're trying to essentially keep people from getting in the building. But as we heard earlier today, if they can get inside your building, they can take your cyber system, okay, your IT center. And so we're trying to keep people from getting in on security. That's an opposition to what the police need to do or the first responders need to do in this kind of situation. At the same time, we're trying to design those where you can egress out in any situation. So, what are we supposed to do? Train somebody that's inside the building, hold the door open for the police till they get there?
Or maybe sit there and press a big red button on their cell phone that as long as they're pressing that button, the door remains unlocked.
Who's authorized to do that?
Yeah, nobody.
Because now if somebody's got that and they've turned, this comes down to a whole scenario, again, at the high level, looking at the corporate situation. Should we be doing background checks on a regular basis, financial and background checks on employees? Because what's causing the growth? We don't think so. But I guarantee there's corporations that that's the truth.
Well, let me Ben, I know you know the answer to this question, so don't answer this question, Ben. I know I was going to give out $1 or something, but I don't want you to win. Well, if you don't, I'll give you $1 for it. So, let's take a real pause. Let's pause in San Bernardino for a second. We're talking about what are the stakeholders willing to pay? What are people willing to invest? Am I going to have to change my routine? Do you guys know the general duty clause in the United States of America for motion? Can anybody quote that to me? I can't, so I'll write it here so I can read. Do you know the general duty clause? You know the general duty clause, Robert? No. Mark, do you know it? Anybody? All right, guess what? I don't know either. And I've been in the security industry for a while. General duty clause, section 5A1 of the Occupational Safety Health Act of 1970. Employers are required to provide their employees with a place of employment that is free from recognized hazards that are causing or likely to cause death or serious harm.
Good luck.
Recognized could be interesting debate.
Well, guess what? when you talk about workplace violence today, every conversation I have, they go, hold on a second, let me go get HR. Let me tell you something, it's a big deal, and all of a sudden, the whole thinking we do today, because as soon as that occupational safety hazard has taken this one in a violence in an environment, which they have now, and now fine the owner.
Have they fined it?
Oh, brother, have they?
For this type of thing, though.
Oh, well, had a guy at a convenience store in Jersey was killed, and the first fine came out a year ago, April. There was a double fine, it was $14,000. No big deal. Pay $14,000 fine to OSHA. I got a dead employee, no big deal, right? What came next?
Lawsuit. Because they found him guilty and he accepted the liability, so.
Oh, yeah. So all of a sudden, the conversation can really change if somebody doesn't want to spend any money. Risk and liability, right? What do we, the guy, I don't want to talk to the security guard guy. I want to talk to the guy that has to answer to risk and liability questions about not, and I think, is it you, Dave, or maybe you've been, I'm not sure who said it today, but there's a difference between, yesterday, there's a difference between liability, or negligence and gross negligence, right?
Criminal negligence, yeah.
Yeah, right? If you know and you don't do something about it, so let's move on. So 2 or 3 minutes after the first entered the conference room, the fired more than 223 rounds. The shooter stopped and hastily departed, heading out to a black SUV that had just parked outside, leaving behind the chaotic scene of noise, fear, and pain. So, considering the following facts, what approach should be considered when designing an SOC? And again, I know this is a public entity, okay, I understand that, but what could be done to increase or improve situational awareness during the event and after the shooters left the facility? What could be considered? I mean, we actually touched on it, but I'll go back to Phoenix, 2004, we were putting surveillance cameras outside. Why? So you can see what's happening outside. The SOC, because we're going to run up on time here. Guess what? The sheriff's department's only like a mile away. I'm not that far away from the IRC. It's not very far away. I mean, you have a dispatch. You have and again, I know there's a difference between dispatch and 911. And I know they need to separate those things. I understand that. Right. But principally, how bad does it have to get where people stop and say, okay, hang on a second. Let's think about this and increasing survivability. So all I'm saying is this. Johnson & Johnson, one of our worldwide customers, they're reducing SOCs around the whole world. Why? Because technology today, I don't need 15 SOCs, right? Why? I need less. Well, what do I want? I want to be able to have my video, my access control, all my intercoms coming in one place. Well, why can't we talk to people about thinking that way? Can you not take a Genetech system and look at Genetech cameras or a salient system? I know you're not going to get a little salient commercial from remote location? Sure you can. Sure.
But there's danger in centralizing that as well as advantages.
Well, there's danger with somebody comes with a gun and shoots at you too.
Well, no, what I'm saying is,
well, yeah, it is.
Typically, that is a risk.
Yeah.
But typically, if you're doing a centralized SOC, you're gonna put a main and a backup or an alternate, I should say.
Sure.
And
absolutely.
That way.
It's geographically disparate.
Right. It's a geographic thing.
A training exercise can be an unbelievable sales tool in developing budget for an end user. And we have the privilege of working with almost primarily end users and not through architects, which obviously a lot of consultants work through architects. But, it's easy to say, okay, we'll be able to handle this situation when it comes up. Cool, let's do a drill. And let's see how well your operators can work in this environment with these disparate systems. Have them try to track somebody during business hours. I mean, you don't have to have a shooter running around your campus. Put somebody in an orange ball cap and just have them walk around and have somebody try to track them on the cameras. Have somebody try to lock down doors or do very basic functions in real time while somebody's just walking around during business hours. And when you can't do those basic things, then it becomes very easy to go back to the business and you go back to your duty of care. You now have a recognized issue that they have to fix.
All right, look on our timeline again here. First floor secured, patient evacuation triage area. Patients are evacuated triage area. So it's 11:17, so that's approximately 20-some minutes afterwards. So the SWAT team the initial contact team has arrived. The SWAT team is in there. They're all decked out in their gear. They're dying from heat exhaustion because they're all geared up. It's hot as hell. They say it's about a 70-degree day, and they're trying to breach every single solitary door in this facility. Right? And there's a lot of doors. And they're knocking down a lot of doors. This particular clip came at 25:54, so we're 25 minutes after the first call. Take a listen.
Lincoln 3, do we have that access card yet? Cabrera has been tasked with getting the access card for you.
So that's a second request for an access card. With you, Ryan? Okay, here's 30 minutes afterwards. These guys are dying, knocking these doors down.
Travis, Cabrera, I'm looking at an access card. I'm at the main entrance. Where do you want me? Hook up with Lincoln 3.
So Lincoln 3 is dying right now. Lincoln 3.
Why do they need an access card, for Pete's sakes? All they needed to do is go and block all the freaking doors.
But they didn't have it designed out.
Huh?
From where?
From where? How?
And was it designed
From the
as
SOC. From the Knox box. That's one of the things that we do on all our projects. We put a button inside the Knox box that unlocks the freaking doors.
Police don't have access to it.
No, and that's a problem that he pointed out. That's one of the biggest issues that I see right now with Knox boxes.
They don't know. Here's the problem. They don't know the shooters are gone. There's no, they don't hear the gunshots. They call that, there's no stimulation. There's no stimulation. But they don't know they're gone.
Yeah, I mean, are these guys laying in wait now to start ambushing law enforcement?
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
They don't know they're gone.
Yeah, I know.
Right? And they think there's 3.
But why is that an issue about unlocking the doors?
Because if you unlock all the doors, I mean, these guys
They have free run.
they got free run the building, right? And right now they got bodies strewn all over that first floor. It is a mess. They're having to walk over the bodies. I'll get to the last slide here. It's going to make your skin curl, okay? Because why didn't they unlock? I agree. Why didn't they do a lot of things? But first, I want to remind you, they didn't do anything wrong. I'm not saying they did anything wrong. They waited for the 4-man team. They went and they breached the doors. They had to clear that floor. And by the way, once it's clear, it becomes a warm zone. So now guess what they can do? Now they can bring in the TCC, they can bring in the group that can come in and actually start bandaging these people, right? Every second that goes by that they don't have that into a warm zone, they've got paramedics in there to do triage, is one more pint of blood they're losing, right?
Yep.
So guys, I'm talking about things that, holy don't say a bad word.
We've never heard that before.
Never.
No. But think about it, you follow what I'm saying, Mark?
Yeah,
it's like
bleeding out.
It's like, but this is after it's over, and we're looking at it going, shit, what could we have done different? Right? What could we teach them and tell them? I mean, I'm learning something from you guys right now that I didn't know, I'm going to use, right? What can we do different? So that's the whole idea of this exercise was, one of the first orders is clearing the building. They cannot stop. They clear the building because the second one of the 3 guys stops to help somebody.
Right, you don't.
Right?
They don't do that.
They lose. That's right. And yet, right? So after reading this small section of the report, what technology could have been used to help the officers and how? An officer rated for breaching tool. They also asked for electronic access cards, and the IRC employees had. Those who proved useful opening many locked doors throughout the IRC complex. It was physically exhausting because a large number of locked doors had to be forced open. The search process was also mentally demanding. Think about it. Where are those son of bitches? Where are they? They don't know they're gone. They didn't look at video. Nobody watched the outside cameras. Didn't see the SUV leave. We've got there's a dealer out there called Inco, not too far away, about a mile and a half away. They actually got video because they came back in the SUV 3 times. They had a little bit, you know.
My point is to your point. Why the hell don't they, the Knox box, the police were there, the fire department was there, why didn't...
Well,
the building wasn't clear.
The key part about the fire department in these types of incidents, and you heard it in the radio call, is fire department is staging.
Yeah.
So they're not actually on the scene, they're a ways away. Now somebody could arguably, but the fire department is not allowed to give the Knox box key to the police.
I know. That's the good news and bad news about Knox box systems is they're so well controlled. That's the good news. The bad news is they're so well controlled that LEOs can't even get the keys.
So Mark, look at this last paragraph, and I'm going to make sure you get a copy of this thing. Read this last paragraph here. Search process was milling manning, acquired firearms, discipline as the officers encountered frightened people, clustered together, hiding at times, running towards the officers. This is just a chaotic situation, right? This is the reality of it.
Shooter scenario.
When the teams came to the last 2 rooms of the building, they expected to find the shooters inside. I'd be crapping my pants. Okay? This is where I don't want to say I made peace, but I was ready to go, said the IVS officer. We got into one room and it was empty. We had a quick breath and then we went to the last room. I was never so excited to not see anybody. Another colleague remarked, we were pissed. Where were they at? Never really said to the preposition, but that's okay. He said, we are pissed for the victims. Somebody had to stop this. In reality, that wouldn't happen for a few more hours. So there's no fire there because that building's not clear. There's nobody in there putting bandages on those people because guess what? It's a hot zone. They're not going to send the fire or the paramedics in the hot zone, right? And we're 25 freaking minutes into this thing, right? And nobody knows. So my question is, if I just use the damn video that's there, just use the video that's there. Don't go crazy complex. Just say, hey, just turn the camera, just look at the camera. Somebody look at a live feed or a replay feed of something. Or where are these people?
Did they even know they had video? Did anyone know?
They don't even mention it. They don't mention it in the after-action incident report.
If they didn't know, how could they be responsible for using something they didn't know?
Well, how will they get access to it?
Well,
they get access to
but it was, guess what? Who do you think owns IRC? Well, who do you think owns it?
Well, the city owns it.
It's their property.
But we're looking at this in a broader picture. It could be commercial building.
Right.
Yeah, it's a county building.
It's county, yeah.
I think it's really important is to look at what is the most practical worst case scenario. This is probably realistically the worst case scenario, whether it's private or public, that the multi-tenant building is going to look at. But at the same time, we can't go so far. Could we design buildings that could withstand a fully fueled 767 going into them? And the building won't pancake like WTC did on 9/11? Right. Maybe. Could we afford it? No. Probably not.
The building that's there now can.
I'm sorry.
The building that's there now can. Ask Deucebella, they designed it.
Well, I don't know. Really. But what I'm saying is this is our worst concern. So when we're working with clients, we've got to get them to start thinking, it can't happen here. That's probably our biggest foe in this whole situation is, that'll never happen. You're not in my community, not in my workspace. And I would challenge them to go back and talk to people in any of these situations. Did you really think it wasn't going to happen here before it did? And possibly they thought it would have.
Well, and let me add. Let me add that we're a couple of years after the incident now, and it's very easy to Monday morning quarterback.
Absolutely.
And I think that's really important when you're talking to customers. Is not doing that. It's good to learn lessons from incidents, but it's so easy now to say, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? I can tell you about 2 weeks ago, so I'm still a reserve police officer. And about 2 weeks ago, I responded to one of the worst things I could imagine, which was an active shooter at a school. And thank God it was a false alarm and nothing was going on. But that's about the most unimaginable call that you could get. And as somebody who teaches active shooter and who designs buildings for active shooter, I made so many mistakes that day because when you're in the heat of the moment, and I reverted to my training and I did a lot of things right, but I did several things that during the debrief after the fact we said, you know what, next time I would do it this way differently.
Right. Let me just, I got 2 more slides here and then we'll be very quick. So my point was, when you hear this,
okay, you're going to make a PA out in that building.
Is there anybody that knows how to operate a PA in that building, have them come to you? That was a technology that exists that they could have leveraged during that incident. Now, I'm in the PA business, or communication business, that's music to my ears. We could have done that through a device that would have been very easy for them to use. So our point is, when you look at the evening, the killers are gone. They were out of the building by 11:04. Here's the part that makes me crawl, and this is where I just wish we could learn from this. It was the worst thing imaginable. Some people were quiet, hiding, others were screaming or dying, grabbing at our legs because they wanted us to get them out. But our job at the moment was to keep going. The parole officer said that was the hardest part of stepping over them. My point is, that if they looked at video, they'd have known there's a lot of things, and I'm Monday morning quarterback, and this is not saying, God bless those guys that walk in that room. Thank you for being an officer. Anybody that's ever served in the military, thank you so much. Right? I'm not questioning what they did, their bravery, or anything like that. I'm saying as a group or as an organization, can we now think differently going, why don't we think about this differently? That this stuff is available to use when boom happens. Because when I asked this last question, what do you think their long-term impact is on San Bernardino for this tragic event?
Gun control.
Pardon me?
Gun control.
No. What do you think their, it's not their, it's not that, the biggest impact on them, their impact right now is they can't get anybody hired to replace the people, Mark.
No one wants to work for them.
Nobody wants to work for them.
Imagine that.
but they didn't do anything wrong. Right? I mean, they really didn't do anything wrong.
They didn't do anything that thousands and thousands of other companies would have done.
Correct.
So I'm going to try to go pretty fast. I only got about 7 slides. So I thought this was kind of a good paraphrase of quote. A standard is my kingdom for a standard. Of course, that's from Shakespeare's Richard III. He was looking for a horse. I've been looking for standards. So hopefully we'll get there someday. So NFPA 72 for the last 3 code cycles now has had a chapter. How many of you are very familiar or mildly familiar with 72? Okay. I'm an ISAT level 4, like I said before, and I've got some ICC certs, so this is kind of my wheelhouse. I apologize that it was kind of in a hurry to get these out, but Chapter 24 now defines required emergency communication system. Now, NFPA in the lovely wisdom says, when you have a required system, you're going to comply to the standard. And when you have a non-required system, you're going to comply to the standard. What I haven't seen yet is a correlation from NFPA 72, which is the standard in the IBC, saying, yes, you're going to start, where and when you're going to start putting an emergency communication system. But we see EVACs, emergency voice event and alarm, but that's more for high-rise or schools, not necessarily ECS, okay? So, an important part of this too is in 24, they define system by classification. There's one-way emergency communication systems, and that's your standard EVAC system. You have in-building mass notification. So the best way I can define the difference between the two, EVACs is fire, maybe CO detection, and that's what you're going to enunciate. Mass notification is all your other stuff you're bringing in for that system. Structurally, it may look the same, has a few variances in it, which we don't have time to get into today, but that's where you're really concerned. If you're going to do active shooter, if you're going to do storm warning, you're going to do earthquake response, any of that kind of stuff, now you're moving into mass notification in the building. Then you have wide area mass notification systems. Of course, DoD is really big on this, on their bases. Then you get the big loudspeaker arrays and stuff like that. And then you have distributed recipient, or the DRMNS, and that's going to be you're using text messages, email, could be reader boards at the perimeter of the campus, things like that. You then have two-way emergency voice systems, and you have the old standard, firefighters' phone systems. That's the wired systems. Two-way radio communications enhancement systems. That's your DAS system that boosts the signal of the firefighters' radio systems. And hopefully the police are on the same signal, so that would be a good plus. Area of refuge. Again, this is a little off from IBC. Again, this is going to be area of refuge. It's going to either be in a non-sprinkled building, multi-story. You're going to have intercom stations in the stairwells. When you have a sprinkled building with elevator, you're going to have a two-way communication systems in the elevator lobbies. Okay? And they also define elevator emergency communication, that's the in-car, which in my mind, we should be looking at taking the in-car and the elevator lobby and putting them on the same system, but right now they're disparate systems. So that's kind of an issue. Stairway communication systems, I haven't seen a lot of that deployed yet, so I'm not sure where they're coming from on that. They have a tendency to future-right sometimes. So we also talk about what we call layering of mass notification system. Layer 1 means to notification of occupants by systems equipment. Layer 2 relates to means of notification of occupants on the exterior of the building. Layer 3 relates to means of notification of personnel through your distributed recipient. And layer 4 relates to means of notification of personnel by public measures, broadcast, radio, television, and so forth. Okay? Control unit listings. NFPA is really big on their listings. So 864 is a fire control. 217 is general purpose signaling. And then the one that pretty much applies here is 2572 mass notifications. I live in a UL stick. If it doesn't have a UL sticker on it, it's not going to go on the wall, except for two-way communication, emergency rescue. So, because there's no listing for that. For your ARA system, there's no listing available right now. Okay, risk analysis. This is the big one. We do prescriptive code work most of the time with fire alarm. It's not until you get into a method of design where we have to bring in our fire protection engineers that we really do get into risk analysis. But with emergency communication systems, you're going to do a risk analysis now. That's right in our valley. We know how to do that. Okay? The things they want you to take a look at is natural hazards, which are geological, meteorological, biological, and then human cause, accidental events, intentional events, and cause events. Okay? So basically, we've gone back and forth over the years from class of wiring to styles of wiring, and we're now back to class. But there's some changes to this. If you haven't tracked on this recently, I think you'll find some, of course, the class A is a classic all the way out, all the way back, two separate means of pathway. We can basically survive past either a single ground or a single open and still maintain bidirectional communication. Class B has no redundant pathway, most commonly used out there for the most part. Class C monitors for end-to-end but not pathway. So we're not going to pick up a shorted open or a ground on that. So that's more like using our IT technology pinging to the end device and not worrying about what's on the wire. Okay, Class D is now defined as a fail-safe. My magnetic door hold opens would be my most common, or I may configure my fire smoke dampers as a fail-safe configuration, depending on what's going on with that. Class E is not monitored for integrity, so they'll say, okay, so we got something that doesn't really apply, so this is the catch-all. The newest ones are Class N. Anybody ever heard of Class N yet? Okay, so these guys are starting to finally get out. We got to kind of get ahead of the curve here, and we're starting to say that we need to start being able to supervise for IP type devices. Typically, you're going to have two or more pathways to get to that device, except when there's only one device served. So the best example I can give you of only one device served is if I'm in the student union and I have a TV monitor that now under my emergency command system comes up and starts putting out emergency messages, but it's just one route to that, there's nothing downstream from that, then I use one pathway, not two. Okay, so you've got to carefully start planning this out. It'll survive a single open, ground, short, or combo, shall not affect the other pathway, and the primary and redundant pathway should not be permitted to share traffic over the same physical segment. Class X is a redundant pathway similar to Class A, and it'll do a single open, single short, open and ground, or a single ground. Okay, so that's the conditions it has to survive in. Haven't seen a lot of that deployed yet. The other thing that we come up with is if you're going to do these systems, get your budget in line. Okay, that's because of what we have for survivability now. Level 0 is no provisions. We don't care. It's a normal fire alarm system. Typically, there's no issue with that. No separation between life safety and non-life safety. Level 1, the building is fully sprinkled per NFPA 13, but you're going to prioritize life safety over non-life safety, okay, on your pathways. Level 2, typically CI cable or 2-hour rated fire enclosure. Try to convince the architect that you need to build a 2-hour rated corridor to get your wire down from one end of the building to the other. It's not going to happen. And you segregate life safety from non-life safety if you're using the common pathway. And level 3 is a sprinkled building, typically CI cable or 2-hour rated enclosure, and it's dedicated for your life safety equipment. The challenge is, even like our simple elevator lobby ARA system, it's going to be Class 2 or Class 3. And that CI cable runs well over $1 a foot in some cases. Now, there was the issue that the CI cable failed, the UL pulled the listings back, and they only do CI and conduit, or CIC. I will tell you, good takeaway here, Comtrans, some of you are probably familiar with them as a special cable provider. They now have a listed CI cable no conduit required. Other than if you're below 10, 10 feet down from the ceiling, if you're exposed on the walls, you have to be
Physical damage.
Physical damage, exactly. So this is a big deal. I mean, I do a lot of fire design. I look at these ARA systems and the elevator lobbies, and it's thousands of dollars to put one of these in just for two little floors of elevator. It's getting expensive. Okay, and that's all I have, unless you have any quick questions.
You didn't mention anything about power backup or monitoring.
Because that's all pretty standard. It's going to be 24 and 15. If you have a genset, you can go to 4 and 15.
Okay, so it's 24.
24 for backup.
Right.
15 minutes fully connected alarm lift. But if I have a generator, I can typically get it down to 4 hours, but I still have to have the 15 minutes.
Yeah, I thought it was 4 and 8, but is that a change in?
No, it's been that way for quite a while.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's been that way for quite a while.
Dave, something you and I chatted about the other day was when we do have voice evac systems in these buildings and they're meeting code, they don't meet what we would say operationally would be required to communicate with the occupants in a way that if you're in a building and you're under active shooter and you turned on the voice evac in a high-rise, it just scared the bejesus out of everybody and nobody would know what to do.
Well,
because the STI rating is what, 0.45 or something?
Yeah, so what I would say is this is a lot of people trying to spread the speakers out too much. And what you need to do with a 4-inch speaker, if you're going ceiling mount configuration, you're about the same coverage as a smoke detector, which is about 900 square feet. You go beyond that, you're going to get distortion. Okay. I would say this too is when you're laying out, you need to start considering what's your background. Are you concrete floors?
Well, and the NFPA has a whole a whole guide for how to understand STI. And I don't know, are you seeing anyone use that?
Not yet.
No, it's not mandated.
In fact, the add stuff, the acoustically distinguishable space, which is I think actually what I would call what you're referring to.
Well,
being back away from.
Let me throw
75 dB at the total still active, or?
Oh, that's just a normal basic one. Yeah. And by the way, just so you know, in our occupancies, that's now a low frequency sounder that's required to use. Don't use mini alarms anymore.
Okay.
And they only draw like 10 times as much as
let me throw one more at you. You know that these cray-crays use a fire alarm when they're doing these things. And we've been teaching people that when you're in the fire alarm, what do?
Get out of the building.
Get out of the building. And guess what the people that are the crazies do? They know that as well.
Well, and I got to tell you that ICC has recognized that as an issue. And fully sprinkled buildings now, in most use groups, you no longer have to put pull stations at all the exits. You can get down to one at the riser room. And that way, we're taking that way, because Jonesboro in Arkansas, a number of years ago with 2 middle school kids, they pulled the fire alarm to get the kids out on towards the playground.
So they did in Colorado.
Yeah.
I
don't think they did that.
In the theater.
Oh, in the theater.
In Ohio State about a year ago, fire alarm went off. They go down the sidewalk, ran over the car.
Yeah.
So it's not even a guy with a gun. They use anything's possible, gun,